Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. This is an exclusive webinar to HYCU partners, whether you are a prospect partner or a signed HYCU partner. And today you're going to see a very interesting topic on mobility. What does that mean for your practice, for your business, for your customers? And you're also going to have a preview of upcoming capabilities for HYCU that is only exclusive to our partners. This session is going to be recorded. You're going to have access to the slides. If you have any questions during or after, please send us a note, or you can go into the chat or in the Q&A function and submit any question. Chris and I will make sure to address that. Without getting too deep in the weeds of a Star Trek reference, the topic of today is boldly go anywhere. What we're going to be diving into is in this concept of hybrid cloud mobility, multi-cloud mobility, and what does the infrastructure look like today? What does it look like in the future? Quick introduction. My name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at HYCU. And I'm joined by the esteemed Chris Rogers, who's our Senior Product Marketing Manager, who is focused on hybrid cloud technologies as well. We're very excited for this session. Please, I just want to make sure any questions you have, we're always here to answer them. But what you're going to walk away with today is first, you're going to have a full breakdown from us based on our research, our customer discussions in the market of what does it look like today for a reseller or even a service provider to drive revenue and services in a changing infrastructure landscape? This, we can argue, has been the most volatile time, and at least for my experience in the last 2 decades around infrastructure. But we're going to talk about immediate ways to drive additional value-added services for hybrid multi-cloud environments, but also how to capture cloud and SaaS revenue from this. And you're going to have a partner sneak peek. What's new in HYCU exclusive to you as a partner or an alliance of ours? And of course, questions at the end, which you can ask us live. A little bit about HYCU for those who are joining us and still exploring, our partnership. We're a channel first company. We have over 400 partners worldwide, and we exclusively drive our business through our partners. We have the world's best experience in data protection with the highest net promoter score of 91. We focus not only on our traditional channel partners, but to make sure that we also have strong technological alliances with the likes of Nutanix, Okta, Atlassian, Cisco, you name it. And we're also in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for backup and recovery. This is going to become very relevant as we start having cloud and SaaS conversations as well. But let's get into the matter at hand. So when we think about mobility, when we think about the current state of infrastructure, excuse my dumb analogy here, but I'm going to use the universe as one. And we're going to have a full space travel theme today, so if you'll indulge me. But when we go back in a time machine, let's go back 15 years ago. Your customer's infrastructure, compute, database, storage, everything was on-prem. And most of the new applications that were developed and the new infrastructure that was supported was based on virtual infrastructure. It all revolved around one specific planet. And that planet was VMware, and of course, whatever storage infrastructure you're using as well. But mostly, VMware was the leading hypervisor, and it still is an enterprise class hypervisor. And it is going to be an enterprise class hypervisor and the best option still for many customers. But a lot's changed in the last 15 years, especially a lot's changed in the last 3 years, and I don't have to explain why. But the universe, this infrastructure world, has expanded much more than just around VMware. There's so many more options that have become really mature and tremendous options, not just from an economic perspective, but also from a technology perspective. And we've seen the rise of organizations like Nutanix really delivering full, simple, hyper-converged experience with AHV, but so many other services around it as well, like NC2 and DB files, you name it. And you've also seen different flavors of VMware in the public cloud and services like Azure Stack HCI, which I just found out is actually called Azure Local now. But the universe has expanded in the world of hypervisors and alternate hypervisors, but it has also expanded in the options that customers have. 10 years ago, we were talking about cloud as a novelty, and we were talking about cloud as a novelty from the perspective of, hey, there's some use cases here for cheap storage, for archiving, maybe as a targets for DR. But when we look at today's options, today's economics, and the maturity of the cloud, you have a lot of customers who are actually not only lifting and shifting, they're actually modernizing, and they're fully modernizing and refactoring their applications to run in the cloud. But that's not all, right? Previously, every business application, everything from the repository to your email server, was held in VMware, in data center, and virtual infrastructure. But now they exist as unique SaaS, and cloud hosted environments. So we go from this universe of, I have this planet, everything revolves around it, to there's an entire galaxy of different services and options and flavors of compute, flavors of business applications that customers have access to. It can be very difficult from a partner perspective around where do we focus? What are the use cases that we drive? How do we help our customers get there? How do we give them the solutions that make sure that they can protect their data anywhere? But let's actually drive a little bit more around what's driving the demand for mobility. I attended the Gartner IOCS conference last week, and majority of the conversation was around mobility, and it was around what are customers going to do in VMware? Are they going to stay? Are they going to renew? Are they going to slim down? What are they going to do? But this is not just about folks thinking about moving from VMware. This is not just about that. This is about folks looking for the best possible infrastructure to land their applications and unlock the use cases that they need. So there are many factors that are driving mobility. One of them, obviously, for obvious reasons, is increased costs. There is a change in the economics, a change in the TCO, especially for mid-market and smaller enterprises as well. But organizations are really trying to reevaluate, does this make sense for me? Is it going to be more cost effective for me to renew? Is it going to be better to slim down my infrastructure, or should I adopt in a heterogeneous environment? But what we're seeing too is there is real cloud maturity. I would argue that it really happened at the beginning of COVID, but there is real cloud maturity and use cases where organizations are running production applications in the cloud, and they are running efficiently and in a cost-effective manner. Obviously, every application is different. There's going to be changes in the economics, but even the economics of lift and shift have really changed for customers as well. And of course, you've seen the maturity of hyperconverged infrastructure. You've seen Nutanix grow, and you've seen Nutanix become really an enterprise class option for customers looking for still having an on-prem footprint, having virtual infrastructure, but doing so in a very simple kind of turnkey manner. And Nutanix does provide the best possible option, but you're also seeing the growth of Azure Local or Azure Stack HCI really becoming a default option for Microsoft shops as well. And of course, the buzzword of the day, but something that's actually happening is organizations are asked to adopt AI. And everyone has a different definition of that, but it is a true requirement for organizations where CIOs, CTOs are being pressed to say, how are you supporting AI infrastructure? How are you supporting these new use cases? And folks are starting to make decisions based on that. Which hypervisor, which hyperconverged infrastructure, which cloud platform gives me the best infrastructure, data warehousing, and capabilities to truly run an AI-focused architecture? So when you look at the options that customers have, the options that they have are, well, we're going to stay on-prem, and we're going to look at alternate hypervisors. And we're going to evaluate Nutanix, we're going to evaluate Azure Local. Or we're going to lift and shift to the cloud. We think the economics of this makes sense. Or maybe we're already in the cloud here, but we see Google or Azure or even AWS as a better or more cost-effective option. And some are saying, well, I've lifted and shifted, but I'm ready to modernize. And others are saying, hey, I've been modernized, but for me and my applications, it might be better for me to come back to the cloud. The point here is that it is a very, very dynamic environment. This is no longer a one-to-one. This is a one-to-many decision that people are making on how am I going to support infrastructure of the future. Now, you may think, well, okay, noted, people can easily make the switch, and that's that, and we'll help them as a partner get there. But what I want you to indulge me in this analogy is, the question I have for you is what do workload mobility and space travel have in common? Well, let's think about it this way. Once again, as we mentioned, this universe of options that customers have is vast. There are going to be different hypervisors that customers are going to move away from VMware into Nutanix or into Azure Stack HCI or Azure Local. Customers are going to seek the best possible data warehousing technology. They're going to choose maybe something like Google BigQuery, and they might choose to modernize their infrastructure on BigQuery. Or they want to run a very mature infrastructure as a service practice with AWS, or they want to consolidate within Azure and gain a much better DevOps experience. The point is, there are dozens and dozens of use cases, and they have options. And customers right now might be living in one planet, but they might want to go to another planet. But the reason this is so difficult is just like space travel, it might be feasible to go to another planet. It might be feasible to go to the moon. But when you go to Mars, and I know there's a ton of conversation about us going to Mars, think about what that actually means. Yes, maybe you can leave Earth and you can go to Mars, but you will die there. There is no way that you're going to be able to come back. And just like space travel, there are going to be disruptions. There are going to be reasons why you may not be able to get there. And it might take a very, very long time to get there. In the context of infrastructure, years; in the context of space travel, light years. But the point is, just like space travel, migrating these workloads, it can be hard to get there. It can be very expensive. You can guarantee that for many organizations, it might be impossible to come back. It can be time consuming, and there's also a lot of potential for disruption. Now, why is this important? Well, organizations are making the decisions to move, but sometimes it can be very difficult for them to do so. And when they move, they want to have the ability to be able to move back and to be able to say, well, actually, this may work for me, or this new infrastructure works for me. I want to keep something in Nutanix and I want to adopt this specific infrastructure in Google Cloud. I want to manage both. In the world as it lives today, it's been very difficult to be able to do so, right? Because it's been like space travel, expensive, time consuming, and basically one planet to another, nothing else. That's been the decision. Now, when you think about making that move and actually diving into what a migration looks like, and we're not going to use the term migration too much because migration is just one move. What we're talking about today is customers always being able to move, but there is a lot of requirements in order to do a migration effectively. Chris, you've been a customer, you've been somebody who's been an infrastructure engineer, a cloud architect. You've actually seen these migrations happen. Run me through what do these stages actually look like, and what are some of the pains behind that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of time, people focus on like the actual, the one in the middle, the migration piece, right? The moving from A to B. That's actually the relatively sometimes the seamless bit or the easiest bit. It's all the bits that in between and the hardest bit. So the planning out. Okay, we need to map all our interdependencies, business criticality, responsibilities, ownership, all those types of things. Can we afford it to be down over the weekend? Yes or no? Actually, a year-end platform might be great outage during the day, but actually, when your taxes are due, that's the worst time it could possibly be. Right? All these different dependencies take time to map out, and then you have that staging, right? So getting from data from A to B takes a lot of time, especially if you're a large organization. You're going to have potentially terabytes or petabytes worth of data you've got to try and stage, and then you've got to do that cutover, that switch over, and then you've got that validation on the other side. Very rarely can you do that seamlessly. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be hiccups. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. That I think the inevitable is always going to happen. I've had a personal experience of when I was working at a service provider, and we did a migration. Went through all with our teams, the planning, all that kind of stuff. And they were in they just finished staging all their data into a new platform. We're about to go undergo the migration. Big Gantt charts of when we're going to happen and what stage is when, and they got acquired. So then they had to figure out whether they were going to roll all of that back and figure out, do we carry on with the migration or do we go there? And actually, they carried on with the migration, but then after they stopped that, the new company came in and said, "Hey, we need to migrate you from there into our company, standardization, which was public cloud at the time." So they went from hypervisor A to hypervisor B, completely different tech stack, and then immediately started their migration again onwards, and they went through all of this all over again, right? So it was painful for them. Luckily, a lot of the stuff had already been done, um, but I think that's going to become almost the norm now. It's not the big lift. It should be, right. It should be, we're going to change strategy, and we should be able to pivot and go, AWS. I'm not saying each day, each month, maybe not, but actually in 6 months' time, our AI strategy has changed, and we're going to develop this AI practice that's going to be built on Google BigQuery or whatever else we're going to do on, or whatever the tech stack they decide to choose. And that's going to be a case of they want to move their data across to there and do that now. And then that's going to evolve. I mean, Gen AI has evolved so much in the few years it's been around already. Imagine what it's going to be in the next 3 years. So people are really wary now of making the same mistakes, repeating the same mistakes they have done of, I'm going to call it the VMware trap, but that's not really fair. But, putting all your eggs in that one vendor basket and going, that's going to be my sole provider, because why go anywhere else? People are starting to understand that actually multi-cloud, multi-hybrid cloud is a default strategy. And most people need to be able to have mobility of their workloads and their data across disparate platforms. I think that's going to be the norm, and that is going to be vital to most organizations' success.
No, thank you so much, Chris. And the value here, the discussion point is we need to move away from mobility being one-time things that require entire teams, that require complete changes, completely changing the data protection infrastructure that you're using, everything. It needs to be simple, and it needs to be much more rapid, and it needs to be accessible to whatever planet, whatever infrastructure you are trying to leverage. As you can see, I am holding on deep to this analogy. I'm not going to let go. And we want to really talk about, what are those data black holes, right? Because there are technical challenges and there are business challenges. At the end of the day, moving infrastructure can be expensive. It could be disruptive. You might have to change data protection vendors in order to make sure that you're protecting data the right way. That alone itself can be a very costly endeavor, a very disruptive endeavor as well. But at the end of the day, from a business perspective, the reason this affects all of our customers is there's revenue loss from disruptions for them. There's a vendor lock-in process that happens. There's high cost of mobilities. It takes a long time. And any type of disruption there could also cause reputational damage. People should be able to move to new infrastructure safely, securely, knowing that they always have the freedom to leave, but that they know that they have the best possible support for that new infrastructure. For customers saying, we're moving away from VMware, we're migrating into Nutanix. You want to make sure that the data protection, the migration, everything that you're using is optimized for Nutanix, that's best of breed, and it allows you to protect Nutanix the way it should be so that you can unlock all of that value as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about a costly migration, a customer story for us. We had a customer who was moving away from VMware, but they weren't going into one specific vendor, one specific infrastructure. They wanted, and they had different sites, and they want to be able to have different infrastructure and heterogeneous environment in all of those sites. So they wanted to leverage Azure Government. They wanted to leverage Azure Stack HCI. They wanted to leverage AWS Gov. Now, in that, they wanted to have the option not only move there and protect it in a safe landing zone, but if they wanted to leave one of those vendors, they wanted the ability to also move to another vendor across hypervisor, or even moving across to that cloud or government cloud infrastructure as well. They wanted to do this in a way that was cost effective, that was a minimal disruption, and simply said, look, wherever we're going or whatever sites we're going to consolidate to or completely separate from, we should be able to do that. But the reality that they faced was this was an extremely high cost endeavor. The migration was only specific to one infrastructure to another. They had zero mobility between those sites and those heterogeneous environments, and they had lots of tools to be able to accomplish this. This almost became a non-starter. So I want us to think about, as we talk through these capabilities, as we talk what you're able to deliver for customers using HYCU, this is what customers have faced. They have technological reasons to move this infrastructure, not just economics. They want to be able to do so, but it's very painful, very difficult, very disruptive for them to be able to do that. Now, kind of the concept that we're taking at HYCU, with our partners, it's not about helping a partner say, I need backup for 5,000 VMs of this, or hey, can you help us out with this migration? It's how do you have a relationship with the customer using your data protection vendor that gives you a customer for life, meaning whatever infrastructure decision that customer is making, they have the freedom to know that their partner, the data protection vendor of choice of that partner, can protect them and move them as they see fit in that journey. And that's where you see HYCU R Cloud. And many of you might know HYCU R Cloud from the perspective of, hey, that's the best possible solution for Nutanix data protection. Hey, I know they do an incredible job for cloud native services within AWS, or they're the only ones who protect certain workloads in Google Cloud. But the reality is we have a very, very, very broad coverage. Now, this doesn't mean that the coverage is uniform because we go deep into every single one. But from a use case perspective, we give customers in the platform full discovery of their environment. We give them backup and recovery, very simple, but enterprise class backup and recovery. There's ways to protect and recover infrastructure workloads from ransomware. There is DR built into this. And of course, for today's conversation, they have the ability to move and migrate that data as they please, store it in whatever infrastructure they need to store it, and maintain complete compliance. Many folks will claim this. Many folks will state that those are the same exact capabilities. But what's unique about HYCU? It's software only. There's no hardware requirements for you to run HYCU. It's software only, but most importantly, it's agentless. And maybe in another partner webinar, we'll have a full discussion on what that actually means and why it's so important for the customer. But the point is, it's very simple. It's application centric, doesn't matter what you're doing. It can run anywhere. It's storage agnostic. It has a cloud scale architecture, and it's just fully flexible. Protect and move any to any with app centric mobility and protection. But first and foremost, it's simple. And this is not simple in the buzzword term. This is truly simple. Anyone who's been in a POC with HYCU simply knows how easy it is to move, how easy it is to protect any infrastructure. But the point of this, though, is your customers are going to have different needs at any point in time. And in certain cases, they're going to want to move between hypervisors. They're going to want to lift and shift. They're going to want to modernize, or they're going to want to come all the way back down to the infrastructure in which they started at. And what Haiku is able to do is not only start immediately protecting VMware in a native agentless capacity, but also allow you to move and protect workloads to additional hypervisors. And we'll use Nutanix as an example. You'll be able to not only protect in VMware, but throughout the staging process, throughout the migration process, make sure that your organization is disruption free, but also protecting workloads inside of Nutanix. And in many cases, you might want to leverage different flavors of Nutanix, like things like NC2 or different flavors of VMware or government clouds. And you can enable the lift and shift of that. Your customers are always going to have boutique needs. Some are cost decisions, some are technology decisions. The point is, with Haiku, any movement can be made, any to any protecting before, during, and after any infrastructure decision. So when you're thinking through and you're continuing to evolve your practice, and you see all of these boutique needs that customers now have, it's all about application-centric mobility. If you're looking for customers to drive cross-hypervisor migration, Haiku can do it. If they're simply looking to leverage the public cloud for DR, just as a starting point, Haiku can do that within the same environment, no additional licensing. If they're looking to lift and shift, they can do that as well. If they're looking to modernize, you're not going to find more native support than in Haiku. And even if they want to move across clouds or even come back from the cloud, you're able to support it. You're able to support it for them in an app-centric fashion. You're able to protect them during any type of mobility. And there's no retrofitting. It's just going to work natively with the infrastructure. There are no agents. There's no hardware requirements. Whatever the customer needs, if they need to move to Nutanix, if they need to move to Azure Local, they can move. There's no drama. It is what we call drama-free mobility. Now, what does the before and after look like? And this is based on our customer experiences. Well, first of all, even getting started is complex. You have to manage multiple tools. There's a lot of planning, a lot of length. And don't get me wrong, there's still a ton of work that needs to be done in order to make sure that a migration is effective, that a mobility exercise is effective. But that work should not come from retrofitting data protection services. And of course, it's costly. It can be very dangerous from a data loss perspective. And it's very limited, which means that you're probably only able to move into one type of infrastructure. And a lot of times the vendor drives the strategy here. But with Haiku, whatever decision the customer makes, I am moving from vSphere into AHV. I am lifting and shifting to the cloud. I am trying a flavor of Nutanix or moving into Azure Stack HCI. It's going to be simple. It's one tool, one simple process. It's going to be cost effective because it's just a license. There's no agents, there's no hardware needed. Migration windows are shorter. You know it's safe, it's secure, and it's application centric. And once again, you can always move back. And that's the point where customers deserve mobility. They deserve flexibility. Their needs, whether that's their budget or their technology requirements, are going to change faster than ever before. Now, with that being said, that same customer story that we had a conversation where they had serious pain, serious costs, and a very cumbersome approach, with Haiku, they were able to consolidate all tooling. They were able to simplify the discovery and the migration workflow, and they were able to migrate and move the data across different infrastructure. They have the flexibility to move at any point in time, drastically reducing their TCO. This is the best possible experience a customer could have when it comes to making a new infrastructure decision. Now, with that being said, we're talking about a specific fraction of the environment. We're talking about their infrastructure. There's a very different world out there where applications like Jira or GitHub or even Microsoft 365, they're no longer server and data center hosted. They're cloud hosted. And what we've noticed, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it really relates to a lot of the new capabilities we're releasing, is it is now going to be part of IT budget. We're already seeing it ourselves. We have the customer anecdotes. We're talking to the field and to partners all the time. And customers are starting to realize, whether it's because of legislation like DORA or NIS 2 or third-party supply chain events that we've seen recently, customers realize, wait, I'm responsible for my SaaS applications if something goes wrong. If there's an insider threat or somebody deletes something, it's on me. And what we're seeing, and this is what we kind of read through last week at Gartner, Gartner predicts that 75% of these enterprises are going to prioritize backup of SaaS applications as a critical requirement. This means that it's not just about M365, but it's about their technology stack running on SaaS. And that universe where customers have where you have full control of the account and visibility into the account. And VMware has expanded very drastically, not only into cloud, but into cloud hosted business applications. Everything that used to be on-prem, whether it was document signatures to Git repositories to CI/CD pipelines, that all exists in its own siloed environment, completely outside of your control, out of your scope, and your ability to deliver value. And what HYCU is offering here, and this is actually built in to the platform and something that you can deliver to customers for free, is the ability to visualize their data universe. Using Okta or using Entra ID, or Azure AD, you're going to be able to fully discover all of the applications. We have conversations all the time with customers who say, well, we're using M365, and then they give you a list of the virtual and cloud infrastructure that they're using. And by the end of the meeting, their analysts and administrators will show up and have conversations, and they'll walk away with 50, 60, 70 SaaS applications that they have. This is a very painful discovery process. But what if you can visualize their entire IDP directory? Actually show them in a couple seconds, here is what your environment actually looks like. Here's your current technology stack. By the way, did you know that this is protected? Did you know that this is not protected? And that is a very easy, fast, value-added service and customer engagement that you can drive with HYCU, because that's just the beginning. People cannot protect what they don't know. This is an opportunity to really uncover that environment and uncover much more opportunity. And of course, HYCU is able to protect over 80 integrations. We're really focusing today on the infrastructure side, because that's where a lot of demand is. That's where a lot of questions that we're getting from our customers around. But there's an entire world out there that you're able to protect with HYCU. But that being said, one of the reasons and what we're excited about is being able to show you what's new in HYCU, what's coming in honestly 2 to 3 weeks, and what does that mean for you. And I want to introduce Chris Rogers to kind of give everybody a sneak preview for our partners around what's new, and I'll make sure to monitor any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Annie. Thanks for guiding us through that. You hear me okay?
Perfect.
Perfect, right. So my name is Chris Rogers. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at HYCU, and as Andy mentioned earlier, I've been through the rounds. So I've been on the help desks. I've been a sysadmin. I've been a cloud architect. I've been in pre-sales. I've been technical evangelist, and now I find myself at HYCU as a PMM, and I'm looking after the hybrid cloud side of the house. So a lot of our infrastructure products and public cloud and bits and pieces like that as well. So let's dive in and let's look at exactly what we're covering today. So sneak peek, as we said, of what's new, what's coming in the latest release of HYCU R Cloud. So quite a few big things. You mentioned, Andy mentioned earlier that that Azure Stack HCI has been rebranded to Azure Local. So as we're building up the slides, a lot of messages going back and forth, going, oh, do we change it? Do we not? But yeah, so we're bringing in that application-centric protection and mobility for Azure Local, brackets Azure Stack HCI, right? We're deepening our support for the Nutanix ecosystem. And if anyone on the call is from Nutanix or as a big Nutanix partner, you think, well, how can something that's that good get any better? Well, I'll tell you exactly how it can. We're improving our advanced file share capabilities as well, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. We're going to show you the complete protection we have with Dell Power Protect Data Domain, or Data Domain, as most people in the industry call it, without the Power Protect piece on the front. And then we're going to show you some of the new SaaS applications we support and go from there. But let's dive into the first piece. So Azure Local or Azure Stack HCI, however you want to call it. I think the old name will probably stick for quite a while, like most things in the world. I still keep calling it Azure Stack HCI. So what are we bringing to the market? Well, that is that complete protection. So the HYCU you know and love, the simplicity, the ease of use of the platform, we're bringing that to Azure Stack HCI or Azure Local. I can't figure out which one I want to say. I guess going to hop between the two. So what are we bringing? Well, it's fully integrated. We have native integrations with the full API stack. We're giving that complete interoperability. So we're not just treating this like another Hyper-V host, like a lot of data protection vendors. There are a lot of vendors out there. They are just Hyper-V. It's just running Hyper-V. The amount of people that I speak to about public cloud, and they say, sure, yeah, but it's just Hyper-V underneath, right? Yeah, but there's an entire stack on top of it that you need to integrate into properly. Otherwise, you're not doing that data protection justice, right? So we are doing that at the base level and all the way through the integration stack as well. We're giving that efficient data protection. So as Andy mentioned earlier, we are completely software only. We have an incredibly small footprint with no agents and a low overhead. That means for maybe those edge use cases or those robo sites, or even in your core data centers, That is a low TCO, a low footprint, means that you as organizations and you as partners to those customers can right size HYCU very easily, very simply, and let Azure Stack HCI or Azure Local run the customer's workloads rather than running our workloads, right? That's essentially what we want to do. One-click SLA compliance. So that fully policy driven for applications and VM workloads. Andy mentioned earlier the automatic application discovery that HYCU has, that patented technology, that's coming straight in for Azure Local as well. So that set and forget policy, you know, assign your gold, silver, bronze, SQL, database, app, web, whatever policies you want to assign, you assign those into there, and with tagging and everything else, you can automatically assign those as well, making it even easier. And then we'll tell you whether you're compliant with that or not. And that's not just a compliance from has the backup run or not? Or was it successful? Or maybe some slight intelligence of, oh, it looked like some data moved. This is full RPO and RTO reporting. And yes, I said RTO as well as RPO. How quickly can we get your data back into your organization, which is probably the most valuable metric out of your recovery you'll want to be looking at and tracking. But also whether things were happened in an application consistent manner as well. Did your SQL databases get backed up in an application consistent manner? Did your Active Directory on premise get backed up in the proper way? We can give all of that into a nice single green tick for all those applications and workloads you're running. And then bulletproof backups. There's not a webinar or a customer or a partner or anyone I go to where we don't talk about ransomware at some point, and it's the nature of the beast. It's everywhere. It's vital to most organizations to have that recovery option from that event. But we bring in all of the stuff you would expect for us to bring, but the immutability, multi-factor authentication, role-based access control. We can verify your backups for you as well. So we can actually spin them up in a sandbox environment, make sure the script that you want runs, or make sure they power on properly. And then we also have anomaly detection on top of that as well coming to the stack. And as Andy mentioned earlier as well, for organizations who are looking at Azure Local, probably not all the time, but most likely they're going to be in a Microsoft shop, right? But we have probably the biggest coverage for the whole Microsoft stack. So that's not just the Azure Local we're announcing today, but Azure instances. That's in commercial Azure and including government Azure Cloud, public cloud as well. Microsoft 365, Microsoft Entra ID, and then GitHub and GitLab is owned by Microsoft as well, right? All of that with one trusted vendor. So you don't have to go and pick and choose and do that pick and mix of different vendors to protect 365 or Entra and Azure Government and then Azure Local and all that kind of stuff. Is one simple solution, one holistic view for your data protection needs for that Microsoft shop. So again, if you have any questions, put them in chat. Andy will be answering them, or we'll come to them at the end if we have time as well. So next on the list, how am I doing for time? Just double check. Yeah, we're doing okay. So we're expanding our Nutanix coverage. And what do we mean by expanding? Well, if you didn't know, we are the #1 data protection platform for Nutanix already. So what does that really mean? Well, we have the highest possible, credibility with Nutanix, I suppose, with that the Nutanix validated blueprint design means it's a proven technology. Not only are we trusted by Nutanix, but we're actually used by Nutanix as well. So Nutanix IT are actually a paying happy customer for a long time of HYCU. So if you didn't know that, there's a bit of information for you as well. We already have the broadest coverage with deep history and product alignment across all departments, from sales, from integrations, from product into marketing, across everywhere. Right, we are the first dedicated Nutanix backup in the marketplace, and we still continue to carry that flag as being the best in the marketplace. And we also have 80 plus integrations that can land on Nutanix unified storage as well. So bringing all of that data that's in that cloud universe back down into the Nutanix world, storing on Nutanix objects and Nutanix files as well. So what do we support currently? So we have AHV and ESX. So again, we support both of those flavors in Nutanix world. So not just one or the other. We have NC2, so those workloads that are running in public cloud, but on that Nutanix platform. AHV Metro, we've got a very unique capability where we can back up data from replicas, so we don't have to, copy the data that's already being replicated by Nutanix in the platform already. Nutanix Prism, so for that, the Prism element and Prism Central as well in integration. A Calm footprint, so you can deploy HYCU incredibly easily from that Calm marketplace. Remote offices and branch offices, so again, that replication of multiple different data centers at many to one, we can support all of that very efficiently as well. I mentioned Nutanix Unified Storage already, but that NUS, not just using objects and files for backup storage, but also backing up whatever is on those file servers or those buckets as well. And then Nutanix Database, and that's the thing we're announcing today is support for Nutanix database service. So again, first to market for enterprise grade backup product to support Nutanix database service. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, essentially it's running kind of essentially database as a service on your Nutanix gear. I'm sure someone from Nutanix will be able to give a much better explanation than I can, but essentially running those workloads in a Nutanix environment. We're also announcing AOS 6.10 support and also VTPM integration. So if you've got customers who are using virtual trusted platform modules inside of their virtual machines, we're now integrating that support into HYCU as well. So let's just dive a little bit deeper into the Nutanix database service in HYCU. So we're giving that unparalleled protection. So we are giving that largest coverage of any data protection vendor for Nutanix workloads. And that obviously just got even bigger with the announcement of Nutanix database service as well. So you can pretty much guarantee if customer is running a Nutanix workload, that HYCU is pretty much going to be able to recover and back up that data for you as well. We are NDB aware. So we understand the constructs of what NDB is, and we can therefore automate our protection properties and our policies that best fit these workloads, right? And rather than just seeing it as another VM or another workload and having to manually assign different policies or different ways of doing things, which adds a load of complexity, a load of time, and is rife for error, we automatically know it's NDB, so we can make sure that the policies and the protection in place is suitable for the workload that's there. And we don't require a DBA, right? We don't require any external scripting to be done, no DB expertise. So we're making those database consistent backups super simple, super easy to achieve, right? I'm not a DBA myself, but I'd imagine if I was, running backups would not be the thing that's top of my list, right? We can protect their time to make them, make it more efficient, run faster, do whatever it needs to do with that database. But taking backups isn't one of those things they probably want to be spending a lot of time on. And again, that policy-driven compliance, RPO and RTO monitoring for NDB as well. And we can surpass that 3-2-1. NDB does a great job of being able to roll back certain pieces of the puzzle, but actually for that enterprise grade, for that full protection layer, you need to be able to have that 3-2-1, or if not, 4-3-2-1-1-0 with immutability and different sites and different clouds potentially in there as well. And then we are obviously making them ransomware resilient, fast, secure, isolated, and locked away from any attackers as well. So hopefully that kind of gives you an understanding of what we're bringing to the market with HYCU and NDB, or Nutanix Database Service, if you want to do the long name. I'm just going to look at time again. Yeah, okay, we're pretty good. So what are we bringing? So rapid and efficient scale-out backup of NetApp file shares. So you would have seen on some slides before that Andy had, the NetApp was already in the logos and everything else. That's because we already support any NFS, EBS, SMB file share already. We already have integration with Nutanix files and Dell file servers as well. But we have some deeper integration with Nutanix and Dell. So we use their APIs to look at change file tracking, making backup super more efficient, simpler, easier, less time consuming to do, right? We're essentially bringing that capability to our NetApp customers now as well. So integrating into their SnapDiff API makes it super simple. We can just plug into the APIs, get the efficiency of that change file tracking API, and make your backups easier to and less time consuming. So what does that mean? As I said before, faster backups and less storage resources required, right? Less compute power needed by HYCU and by your storage to churn through all the files and do that full scan each time. We just get a list of files that have changed, back those up, and away we go. As I did mention, we are utilizing the SnapDiff API for version 3. Anyone who's particularly technical wants to look it up. That's the API version we're using. But again, we're integrating into that API level. We're giving you the flexibility as well. So we can let you choose any backup target, and you can avoid that lock-in. So you can back it up to Wasabi, you can back that up to Nutanix files, you can back it up to another NetApp, you can back it up to Amazon S3, you can back it up to whatever you want it to, and avoid that lock-in into that ecosystem. And again, a common theme here, right? We're safe and secure. Securing your file shares from ransomware, such as immutability, anomaly detection, multi-factor authentication, role-based access control, all the things that we know that we should have, we're bringing that into our ecosystem for file shares as well. And the beauty is we can dynamically scale out this platform. So seamlessly scaling out to meet even the biggest of environments. If suddenly you either acquire a company or you have a huge growth in your file server usage, you don't want to have to start manually deploying or deploying new nodes, all that kind of stuff. We can scale out. You add more HYCU instances into your estate, and we can scale dynamically. You can then remove those and scale back down if you need to as well. It's always right size for the environment. And then when it comes to Dell, the complete protection for Power Protect data domain. So again, what does that really mean? There's a lot of words, a lot of sentences, a lot of buzz in that title. But essentially, as Andy mentioned earlier, right, it's very rare now we're going to come across an organization with a monolith application only, right, with just a virtual machine or just the on-premise infrastructures. Most of your customers are going to have virtual machines. They're going to have applications running on those virtual machines, obviously, as well, that you have unique requirements for data protection. They're going to have a whole OS stack or multiple OS stacks likely that they're going to need to protect. They're going to have file servers. They're going to have objects. They're going to have SaaS data as well. And the idea is HYCU can protect all of that, and then using DD Boost that we've integrated into as well, efficiently back up and cost effectively store that data for them. So we can use it on data domain appliances. So they're the traditional boxes that you would buy, place in your customers' data centers or you're in your own data centers, wherever you're architecting, and use the disks and attach them to there and compress and dedupe heavily down. We can support data domain virtual edition as well. So supporting that alongside virtual estates or in that public cloud as well. So giving you and your customers the choices. So if they are a big data domain customer, maybe they're on premises today and they've got data domain and they want to then move that to public cloud. We can support that, right? We can support that moving of that data into public cloud. We can also tier that across into Vault as well. So as I mentioned before, they've got a native integration with DD Boost. So source side deduplication means lower bandwidth and faster backup speeds, right? Who doesn't like faster? Who doesn't like easier? Who doesn't like cheaper, right? We support all variations I've mentioned in that slide beforehand. So ultimate flexibility for you and your customers. You decide what is the best fit for your customers, or your customers decide what their strategy is, and we can help you support placing data onto those data domain devices. Ransomware proof. Again, the common theme in all of this stuff is that most common threat from ransomware and cyber attack. Air-gapped, immutable. We support DD retention lock, and we also have integration into their Cyber Vault product as well. And multi-tiered. So we can secure your backup to an on-premise copy, then copy that data into public cloud, vault it off to another data domain or somewhere else, and also then archive that off the tape if you wanted us to as well. So saving resources and costs, but also giving the customer that kind of bespoke experience. And actually, my strategy is one copy here, another copy in Google Cloud, another copy in this site I own, and I wanted some tape as well. We can support that, absolutely, of course we can. And last but not least, the SaaS application support we're bringing. So we're really, really excited to announce that you and your customers can join waitlist for iManage. So a little fact that I put underneath here, I found out today, iManage actually holds 11 billion legal documents worldwide, and there's not an enterprise grade backup solution for it. I was amazed by that. So customers and partners, you and your customers can join the waitlist for iManage, but also Box. They've got over 100,000 enterprise customers, and I'd imagine petabytes upon petabytes of data sat in their platform. That's not something they publicly disclose. But two massive organizations that hold really critical data for many enterprise customers or even smaller customers or in iManage legal firms. Join the waitlist. We're going to do previews and we'll of course give you partner previews into what that's looked like as well. But these are just the new applications. As Andy mentioned earlier, there's a whole SaaS universe out there that we can currently protect. We can give you access to new use cases, new revenue streams for these customers, or even introduce your customers to the concepts of backing up SaaS applications. Because to maybe some of your customers, this is going to be a new concept. That shared responsibility model is something that gets publicized a lot, but a lot of people still don't understand fully what that means. What does that mean for my organization if my Confluence goes down? What does that mean if my Jira isn't available? What does that mean if Entra ID or Okta isn't available as well? So hopefully that gives you an idea of what's coming in HYCU and what's available. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Andy so we can engage Warp 9, go from there.
Apologies, going to help myself with the references. But no, thank you so much, Chris. For those, that was a lot of information. There's a lot of what's new in HYCU. this is recorded. This will be delivered to you. You will have access to this so you can go back. But if you have any questions around this, we're more than happy if you can contact your channel account manager. You'll be able to schedule a consultation. We can walk through the portfolio. We can walk through our experience, our lessons learned, what people really are looking for, what are the discovery processes to follow, and how to really unlock revenue, whether it's on the migration side with mobility, whether it's on alternate hypervisors, whether it's lift and shifts, or even how do I drive a SaaS data protection business? How do I drive SaaS revenue? We're here for you. But what I wanted to mention too, Chris, if we could go to the next slide, is the first thing that you can help customers do, and you can do this as an almost instant value add service for your customers, is actually help them discover their data estate. I have here the end user experience of rGraph, where you can register, somebody will reach out and help you. But as a partner, we can give you your own workflow where you have your own landing page, your logo, and you're able to have customers register, create a HYCU account, visualize their estate instantly, and you have now helped and positioned them to identify gaps in their coverage. This is something that you can deliver as a partner. And I'm going to give you a second to scan it, but that way you can see the end user experience. But most importantly, this is something that if you reach out to your channel account manager, we can help you kick off a workflow on how to be able to deliver this service as you, the partner. The next that I want to option as well is we, of course, have a 14-day free trial for our cloud. Whatever it is that the customer wants to protect, there is a free trial available. We're giving you access to request a free trial here as a customer. But once again, as a partner, we can provide workflows and help you understand, for my customer base, how do I drive free trials for X? That is something that we can help you in a boutique fashion as well. But with that, I'm going to pause for any questions, and I'll probably ask Chris a couple as well. But we wanted to thank you so much for your time. I see a couple questions around getting more information. What I can ask is, of course, you can go to HYCU.com. Of course, you can go to our partner tab, see all of our partner kits, but there's going to be nothing better than reaching out to your channel account manager, whether it's Anne, whether it's Wendy, everyone in EMEA and APJ or in the US. We are here to help you. We are here to help you with your portfolio, how to drive value-added services, and how to drive revenue. Any question that you have, business or technical, we'll always be able there to help you. But the reality, what I wanted to conclude was the infrastructure space, B2B IT, is changing very drastically. It's not just because of cost. Broadcom acquisition is a very interesting catalyst, but this was a long time in the making of organizations realizing, monolithic applications might not work out for me. I need other ways to deliver value and to unlock new technologies. And that time is here. And it's a matter of how do we evolve and adapt, but give customers protection, give them mobility, give them the confidence and peace of mind to be able to adopt any new technology. And that's what we count on our partners for. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, for your attention, and I hope you have a great day and week.